It's another time to serve you the best of sports business on television. My name is Jide Olano. Welcome to my world, the world of money spinning sports business. On today's show, we'll be looking at Nigeria's multi-sports events, the biggest, and we will be looking at the way forward, how to revamp it. That will be our talking point. And also in the news, many interesting gists that you need to know, where the money is going and those who are making money. This is what this show is all about. It is Sport Exchange, where we talk sports business. Now, I will go on a break, and when I come back, it will be time to serve you the news.
Fantastically finished.
Yes, you're welcome back. Straight to the news. The Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, is signed on a review of the template of the National Sports Festival. The review, according to a press statement released by his office, will be along the lines of strengthening the game's athletes' protection and template for bidding, among other things. A committee to carry out the review is expected to be announced in a few days' time. Wilson is the official game ball of the much-expected Basketball Africa League. The announcement was made at an unveiling ceremony put together by Basketball Africa League and Wilson's Sporting Goods Company. The official ball game ball was specially designed for the Basketball Africa League and features the league's primary logo and social media handle. The secondary league logo, a continent icon featuring Inspire, Empower, Elevate, are also displayed on the ball, which is made of 100% composite leather. The official game ball integrates the Evo NXT construction, Wilson's latest technology, featuring an enhanced grip and a soft, moisture minimalizing feel. Ball's historic inaugural season will tip off on Sunday, May the 16th at the Kigali Arena in Kigali, Rwanda, as 12 teams from across Africa compete in the new professional league. The first ball finals will be held on Sunday, May the 30th. Digital sports media company Overtime has raised 80 million US pounds in a Series C funding round, which included the investment firm of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, Canadian musician Drake, and more than 25 current former National Basketball Association players. The New York-based company says it will use the new capital to build internal capabilities around non-fungible tokens, trading cards, and sports betting, as well as to enhance its existing sports app. In addition, a portion of the $80 million will go towards a significant investment in the development of Overtime Elite, the company's new basketball league for 16 to 18-year-olds, announced last month. A wholesale review of the way English football is run will consider creating a new regulator, changing the fit and proper person test for owners, and examine how to give fans a greater say in how their clubs are run. The review, ordered in the wake of the Super League breakaway debacle, will also consider intervention to protect clubs' identities, including their location and team badges. Ministers hope the doomed breakaway bid by the so-called Big Six teams will prove to be a watershed moment for the national game, creating a new environment where fans have a greater say. English Premier League saw turnover drop by 9%, and there was a reduction in payments to clubs in the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, according to a 2019-2020 financial statement cited. The figures up to 31st of July 2020 was published at Companies House on the 22nd of April 2021. The period covered is for the first of a 3-year cycle of broadcasting and other commercial rights contracts. The company's strategic report noted underlying turnover had fallen by 9%, which was likely due to the rebates payable to broadcasters following a suspension of play during the season because of the coronavirus pandemic. And with that, we'll wrap up the news. Up next is the Dugout segment, and we will be looking at the National Sports Festival, where a product innovator will be joining me. But to set the ball rolling, we will be giving you this report.
After multiple postponements suffered by the biennial multi-sport event due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the April 2nd to 15th date became a reality, despite the cloud of uncertainty as contingents trickled in. The festival officially opened not without a standoff between the whole state and the federal government over financial support that was not forthcoming.
As I speak to you, it took the grace of God for the caterers not to shut down. Other vendors are threatening to shut down. And hence, we LOC have no choice after our midnight meeting to shut down the 20th National Sports Festival if we don't get full commitment.
While the bickering continues despite assurances from the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, sports took center stage as 10-year-old Stephanie Onusiruka won a gold medal for Anambra State in gymnastics. Another talking point was Amina Idris, who won medals for Lagos State in Taekwondo Pumse despite being heavily pregnant. Boxing, however, suffered disrepute after fair play was thrown to the wind as chaos became the order of the day, while we still await a polarized Athletics Federation of Nigeria to either confirm or deny the allegation that Bravin Kiprop, who won a gold medal for Bielsa in the 10,000 meters, is a Nigerian or not. One thing is, however, evident. For the National Sports Festival to achieve its objectives, it must no longer be business as usual, but meeting modern-day sports business aspirations.
Fantastically finished.
Welcome back from that break. Okay, the last report just set a tune for the next discussion we'll be having on the show today. Yes, it has to do with the National Sports Festival. And we are going to be looking at how to revamp the National Sports Festival, which is the only multi-sports event, national sports, multi-sports event that Nigeria has. So, and this is the time for us to look at it constructively and see how we can make it a business-like venture. And joining me to do justice to this particular issue is a product innovator. He's the principal partner, head of product innovation to Report. Telema Davis joins me from Lagos here. Telema, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm glad to be on your show today.
Telema, let's look at the National Sports Festival, created in 1970, and for the reason cross-cultural affiliation, promoting peace and unity and all that. It was held at the National Stadium, Surulere. And
yes.
Now, looking at the objectives, can you say that the objectives, I have some of the objectives here, maybe I should just let you know, for example, the objectives are to build a robust talent pool of athletes, to enhance and elevate sports at grassroots level, to establish a standard program for athletes succession, to enhance and elevate sports at grassroots level, to curb age cheating in sports, to encourage early participation in sports, and to engage young athletes in the Olympic movement, skill development and social responsibility, to enhance cultural and educational development, to promote national unity, just like I said. And also, just a few days ago, the minister is looking at the world review the National Sports Festival. And from your own perspective, do you think this is what we should have at this time?
There are quite a number of things to happen or to get done, especially as regards the National Sports Festival. Primarily, let's bear in mind the fact that the minister is a political appointee, and he has approximately 2 years, to deliver on his task and assignment before he leaves office, if at all he remains in that portfolio to the end of this current administrative tenure. And that in mind, the onus is on his ministry to explore every means possible, to consider the areas under his portfolio that require review, and in this instance, a revamp, to ensure that the objectives for which they were set up and established, are being met. So yes, at this stage, I think and I believe, given the issues, that occurred in the last and recently held festival, the need to really look at it and see what the future holds for such an illustrious event.
Telema, listen to this. A sport journalist, a veteran sport journalist, said this about the National Sports Festival while we were in reply to whether to review or to revamp the National Sports Festival. And as a product innovator, I know that you are going to bring your business perspective to this. Hear what he says. He says, what we have now is not fit for purpose. It's more or less a glorified inter-house sport, to be honest. The whole approach needs to be reimagined, and less emphasis on state governments and more on robust commercial partnerships to drive the hosting and legacy projects.
Absolutely, I wouldn't agree more. He fittingly put it in using the right words to describe it. And let's also consider the fact that at least there were no banters or insults thrown from the respective individual who made this remark, and that in itself is a plaudit, given the observation made. And I think yes, there is a need to review, and borrowing the term used by the individual in question, a reimagination of the National Sports Festival. Now, at the time when it was established and the time now we find ourselves, a lot of things have happened, a lot of things have occurred. So it becomes necessary, especially in view of a transformation of the sports sector into an active economic industry. It becomes necessary to have that look in, reimagine what exactly the National Sports Festival should be in the 21st century, as we go on. The future can only be created when we know exactly what we want to do and how we want to get to that future.
Okay, as a product innovator, we need for the private sector, because globally, sports is driven by the private sector, of course. It's a PPP, a partnership between the government and the private sector. As a product innovator, we need to get the product right. So what are the things if you were to advise, what are the things you will be telling the government, especially at this point that they want to do a review?
Okay, so 2-3 things that I should be on the table is, one, we need to look at concepts such as the Commonwealth Games Organization. Now the Commonwealth Games in itself is an entity on its own. That in itself is a product. But there's a body responsible for the activation of such a product that needs to be put into consideration. We can't have a situation where there's a main organizing committee that at every instance, it bears responsibility for liaising with the state local organizing committee. No, let's have a dedicated entity that bears responsibility or takes responsibility for what happens with respect to the games, respect to the festival. That's a start point. Secondly, there's a need to introduce or revamp the bidding process or the bidding approach for this festival. The days of handing it out, to be honest, it's over. Those days are far gone. It's no longer business as usual. We need to take a second look at how exactly states get to host this event, and it's an opportunity for states, from the business point of view, to have such an event, such a large multi-purpose event come to their states. But states have not taken advantage of this to the great extent of which the purpose of these festivals serves. States have not. So there's a need to take a second look at how states bid for such an event. We can't hand it out. It needs to be done the right way. And doing that has to be done through a commercial conduit. So, for instance, if a state is going to bid, or if states are going to bid for it, then you must be ready to pay. You should be ready to pay. Drop what is fitting to have this event come to your state. And that means you're going to push all the way to ensure that you have the right partners. You have the right partners across categories that capture or reflect the spirit of what this festival stands for. So if for instance, the ministry or in collaboration with the host state or host city decides to have a headline sponsor, so be it. Now, it might not necessarily be that path we need to follow, but we need to consider every angle and every story on the table. Because here's the thing, we want to deliver a product to customers. So it's no longer just looking at fans as sport fans. We need to look at them as fans as well as being consumers of products. So if they're coming into the facility, into the arena where this festival is going to be hosted, now they need to come in knowing fully well that there's a lot of engagement, interaction that is going to be going on between these fans, consumers, and the entities that are associated with this product. So that's talking about the business, commercial aspect, the technical aspect, the sporting aspect, the tourism aspect of hosting that event. I don't believe that Edo in itself, given how cultural the state is, really leveraged on what the festival has to offer. And that is totally wrong. It is not acceptable in this era. It's not acceptable going into the future. That needs to change, and it needs to change urgently.
Telema, I don't know where you stand on the standoff between the maybe Ministry of Sports representing the federal government and the host state, the Edo state, on the issue of getting a subvention from financial subvention from the federal government as regards the hosting of the festival. I don't know where you stand. Is it necessary? Because it almost mar the event.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with receiving or for the federal government through the ministry to provide or offer grants to states hosting such an event. However, if we take a commercial route to such organization and hosting of such an event, then the onus is more on the state. And in the event that we consider the first point I mentioned, which is having an organizing entity, a body dedicated to the organization of the National Sports Festival. Now, that in itself would help to reduce dependence on any monies coming from the federal government, either in form of grants, subventions, or whatever form we decide to describe it. It's more on the state and the organizing body, which in itself is the representative of the ministry, to deliver on the goods. So, for instance, if the National Sports Festival had taken a commercial route, the Edo State government and the body in question would have had sponsors come on board. They would have identified categories for which these sponsors would be relevant. They would have identified the opportunities that would actually accrue to these sponsors, to the brands that will come on board as sponsors. So in that way, a lot of funding will be coming from the private sector. Majority will be coming from the private sector, and little to nothing will be coming from the from the federal government or through the ministry. So that in itself puts a lot more responsibility on the state to do the work. Now, this is where we have a challenge. It is getting this work done. People think that it's just all a case of everyone come to the table and just eat and go, But that is not the ideal model. That is not the ideal process. That is not the right system to make the National Sports Festival what it is, that would be appreciable, that will be appealing and attractive for the final consumer, which are the fans, to get to engage with such a product.
All right. Before I let you go, there are reports that the next host might be Delta states. I think it's this. I feel this should be a point where we can help set an agenda on how to go about it for
yes.
so that we prevent some of the things that happened the last time. So
yes,
up to you now.
Yes, I totally agree that there's the need for us to set the agenda right now, the tone of the agenda right now. We've seen instances where yes, the next host is announced at the end of the event being rounded off in the current host city. Now, but that should no longer be on a platter of free service. It should be based on bidding process that has a commercial outlook, which suggests the fact that, or inform, because the truth is, why should the states, Delta is hosting it for the next edition. The question now is on what premise? What are the metrics that have been weighted? Across what metrics have these hosting been weighted? It looks like a free for all approach, and that's not ideal. It cannot work. It will not help or facilitate the growth and development of the National Sports Festival. Even if we are to review the objectives and adopt some of the previous objectives into a new template or a new framework, we still have to consider the fact that the current modus operandi will not even ensure the success or the achievement of these objectives. So there's a need to really take a second look and ensure that, look, we can't have it a free for all, come chop kind of approach. We need a more proactive, a more scientific process and approach that informs a commercial outlook, that informs private sector participation, that informs that there is a dedicated process starting from the organizing body to the final consumer, so that within that gap, we know that this is the flow, and this is, if at all there's any challenge, we know who to identify, we know who is responsible. If there's any success, we know exactly who to appreciate, who to applaud, and this really helps so that to avoid what we actually witnessed in Edo quite recently.
Oh, wow! What? Thank you very much. Anyway, this is insights from you, courtesy of Telema Davies. By the way, Telema, it's the principal partner, head of product innovation to Reports, and that is a product innovator. Telema, I want to say thank you, and I hope that when next I call on you, you will definitely answer.
I look forward to being on the program again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you and stay safe, Telema.
Thank you.
All right. That was once again Telema Davies is our guest on the Dugout segment. He is a product innovator looking at how to revamp the Nigeria Sports Festival, the National Sports Festival. We're going to a short break, and when we come back, it will be time for the offside. It's special. Stay with us.
Fantastically finished.
All right, that's it. But before we go for our offside, let me remind you that you can join the conversation on our social media platforms. And on Facebook, it's Sports Xchange 24. and on Twitter too at Sport Exchange 24. For those who want to watch a repeat of this program, also you can check out the program on our YouTube channel, which is TV360 Nigeria. Okay, all right. On our offsite segment today, it's what happened at they just concluded the Nigerian Women Football League Super 6, where the women players of Robo just couldn't take it anymore. They accused the referee of bias officiating. You could see them there, okay, running after that. It took the intervention of the security official as well as some officials there, the officials of the game, to intervene to stop that. But what would have been a fight for all, exactly everything would have gone into serious confusion there. A melee was almost recorded there. Anyway, that is it. And the question will be, how long are we going to be having such problems? Because the game deserves, fair play, deserved, unbiased officiating. So the appeal goes as well to the referees. Please let the game be clean so that it can attract sponsors and attract more fans who will believe in whatever outcome happens any day, anytime. On that note, I just want to say thanks for joining me on the show. Of course, we took the business and we were able to deliver the business to you. Thank you very much. See you some other time.